Okay, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're taking a look at the CRAFTSMAN B235. This is a pretty simple two-cycle 27cc leaf blower, okay? And it's one of the cheapest gasoline, if you want to call it that. It is a mixed fuel, okay? It's two cycles, so it is a 40-to-1 fuel to oil ratio. You've got to mix the fuel. You can buy pre-assembled cartridges of that have fuel in them that you can go ahead and just pour in. But when it comes down to it, it's very cheap, about $100 for this, and I want to answer the question, is it any good? Now, for a long time, I had been using a 20-volt Black & Decker battery-powered blower, and a lot of you will know that those smaller battery-powered blowers, they're fine, they're okay, but when it came to fall, and when we had a lot of leaves actually on the ground that were heavy, that were bogged down, that were wet, it kind of became a bit of an issue, because the electric blowers, they really just can't move them. And so in terms of the power to dollar ratio, a very inexpensive gas blower is going to be a pretty good bet. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not. And I do have a couple of gripes that I do want to talk about. But so far, I will say, it's relatively good for a leaf blower that costs about $100 that uses fuel. It's got some strong points that I do want to talk about. First of all, the power ratio is actually very, very good. In terms of the overall output, it is 27cc, so it's still relatively small, but if you compare this with a regular electric blower, it's going to have a really, really good power level. And you're going to immediately notice it does have a bit more oomph, right? Now, along with that, you do get some vibration, you get some shaking because it is an engine that's just, right next to your hand essentially. And that is, I will say, my largest complaint about this unit, at least right now. And I've been using it for several months. I'll try to talk about the pros in a little bit. I do wish that it was a little bit more ergonomic. Now, for this price point, you're probably not going to be too surprised. It's not very expensive. It's not like the Rolls-Royce of leaf blowers or anything like that. It does okay. You can see it's got let me switch hands here really quick. It's got a pretty simple handle up top. Very straightforward there. It's got a power button, which obviously you can use to shut it off quickly, which is nice, straightforward. It does have a nice kind of click. Don't know if you can hear that too much, but it's got a good amount of feedback. This is a sort of rubberized grip, which I could see maybe deteriorating over time. But for the time being, it is relatively nice. It's relatively easy to hold. It does have the trigger here, of course, which obviously you're going to use to adjust your throttle. You can see it's got the throttle control right there, which is going to open the engine more or just, increase the power overall. We have a simple connection here for the spark plug, I believe, is actually right here, and I might have to loosen something else up to actually get access to that, or just, obviously use a little bit more force. But that's convenient. Overall, the structure of the engine, it is convenient. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. We've got a couple of connection bolts here. Nothing too wild. We've got the fuel tank underneath, which does angle upward, which is nice. That prevents you from spilling fuel, which is something that with a gas blower can be very, very easy. We've got a pretty typical priming bulb, which is clear, so you can see the fuel in there, which is nice. I'm not going to prime it right now because it doesn't need it. But anyway, we've got a pull cord, which I found to be relatively smooth. Again, it's something where you're going to want to put it on the ground, use some leverage, and then pull the pull cord from there. Again, not something you're really going to do one-handed too much. And it takes a little bit more effort than using an electric blower, right? A lot of the electric blowers, you simply put the battery in, and then you can turn it off and on really easily, really quickly, switch the battery out when you need to, which in my experience is pretty often. With the cheaper blowers, again, if you've got like a nice quality DeWalt or Milwaukee or something like that, and you've got a large battery pack, that's not going to be a problem. I'm not here to say that these gas blowers are the end-all be-all, right? But again, it's a good compromise. $100 for a lot of extra blowing power, I do think is a pretty good deal. Now, in terms of assembly, it comes in 3 pieces, I believe, out of the box, if I'm remembering correctly. They've got this whole assembly here at the engine, and then this connection here for the tube, whatever you want to call it, and then this connection here as well. That's very easy. It took me probably 10 minutes to put together, and I would say it probably took me about 10 to 15 minutes before the first time I started it, which is, again, it's really, really simple. It's very straightforward. It's kind of a typical, small engine design, which in my opinion is fantastic. I'm a big fan of small engines and their overall simplicity. So again, you've got everything you need right here. Maintenance, pretty easy. I do like this sort of dual tone design. I'll switch it around here in a second to show you that. But yeah, all the components are there. It's very simple. You've got a start switch over here for when you're starting the engine. You've got run over here. I don't know if this is a feature or not, but it does tend to switch over. It's also got a bit of texture right there, which is great. If you've been working with wet leaves or anything like that, it's going to help you be able to maintain traction on that with no issues. It's got a cruise button, which you can see here what that does. Basically locks in the trigger at certain stages so you can have more throttle without having to keep that held in, which is great. So you can see the throttle response there, very easy from the cruise button. A lot of the stickers, you can see this already with the cruise sticker here. It's starting to peel back a little bit, and I kind of don't expect that to last a whole lot longer, which, is kind of sad because, again, I think that if those were a little bit higher quality, if they were a little bit nicer, it would kind of be a nice way to, either have it engraved or something like that. It's going to cost more, obviously, and this is, it's not a high-end leaf blower, so companies don't want to spend that much on it. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this here, too. I want to point this out around the pull tab. I'm trying to see if this is dirt or if this is actual abrasion. I believe it's just dirt. This red paint here, I could see this fading pretty quickly. This, I believe, is plastic. Feels like this is plastic, too. Most of the construction's plastic, aside from the engine. It does have a guide for starting it on the back, which is probably not really going to be necessary for most people. Let's turn it around here. Okay. Got a few more instructions. Fuel ratio, which again, I do kind of question how long will these stickers last. Especially the CRAFTSMAN sticker right here. It is kind of coming off to the sides a little bit. So I wouldn't be too surprised if that doesn't last that long. We've obviously got a cover here for, I believe, the air intake, or I'm not too up to date on the technical terms, but essentially how it gets the air through and pushes it out the front. It's got a cover that does seem to be pretty well built. Keeps debris out decently. There have been a couple of leaves that have gotten in there that I've had to kind of get out, but it's really not a big deal. It's pretty solid when you set it down. Okay. And yeah, power ratio, good. Is it the best quality construction? No, it's not. And that's probably going to be my biggest complaint, right? Is just it's not built incredibly well, and it's really inexpensive, so it's kind of not surprising. Do I think it can compete with electric blowers? Yeah, I do. So if you're looking for a cheap gas blower, so far I would recommend this. So let me know what you think. If you have one, let me know, and adios.